You have probably noticed it at almost every holiday dinner. Someone reaches for the turkey and immediately asks the big question: do you want white meat or dark meat? People tend to answer quickly and confidently, as if they have always known exactly why they prefer one over the other. But most of us never stop to ask what the real difference actually is. Is it just taste? Is one healthier? And why does the same bird have two completely different kinds of meat in the first place? By the end of this video, you will understand what separates dark meat from white meat, how biology created that difference, and why your personal preference says more about muscles than flavor. To start, we need to clear up one common assumption. Dark meat and white meat are not different because of how the animal is cooked. The difference exists long before the chicken or turkey ever reaches a kitchen. It is built into the animal itself. The color, texture, and flavor come from the way different muscles are designed to work. In other words, white meat and dark meat are not just food categories. They are two different types of muscle tissue, doing two very different jobs. Think about how birds move. Chickens and turkeys spend most of their lives walking around. They use their legs constantly. Those leg muscles need to work for long periods of time without getting tired. On the other hand, most domesticated birds do not fly very much. Their breast muscles, which would be used for flying, are not working nearly as hard. That difference in activity is the entire reason dark meat and white meat exist. Dark meat comes from muscles that are built for endurance. These muscles are used over and over again for long stretches of time. To keep going, they need a steady supply of oxygen. That oxygen is delivered by a protein called myoglobin. Myoglobin is packed with iron, and it gives the meat a darker, richer color. So when you look at a chicken leg or thigh and see that deep brown shade, you are really seeing a muscle that was designed for long, slow, consistent work. White meat is the opposite. It comes from muscles built for short, quick bursts of energy. In birds, that is mainly the breast area. These muscles are meant for sudden flapping or quick movements rather than all-day activity. Because they are not used as constantly, they do not need as much oxygen. Less oxygen means less myoglobin, and less myoglobin means a lighter color. That is why chicken breasts and turkey breasts look pale compared to the legs and thighs. So the color difference is not random. It is basically a visual report card on how the muscle was used during the animal's life. This difference in muscle function also explains why the two types of meat taste so different. Dark meat tends to be richer, juicier, and more intense in flavor. White meat is usually milder, leaner, and more subtle. The extra fat and connective tissue in dark meat help carry flavor and moisture. White meat, with less fat and fewer blood vessels, has a cleaner and simpler taste. If white meat were a plain slice of toast, dark meat would be toast with butter already melted into it. Texture follows the same pattern. Because dark meat muscles are used so often, they contain more connective tissue. That can make them slightly tougher, but it also makes them more forgiving when cooked. White meat, with its delicate structure, can dry out very quickly if it is overcooked. That is why so many people complain about dry chicken breasts, but rarely complain about dry chicken thighs. Cooking, in fact, is where the white meat versus dark meat debate becomes really interesting. White meat needs gentle handling. Since it is low in fat, high heat or long cooking times can squeeze out moisture and leave it stringy and bland. Dark meat is far more relaxed in the kitchen. It can handle higher temperatures and longer cooking without falling apart. That is why chicken thighs are often recommended for stews, slow cookers, and barbecue, while chicken breasts are better for quick grilling or careful roasting. From a cooking perspective, dark meat is like a reliable all-terrain vehicle, and white meat is more like a sports car that needs careful attention. Now let us talk about nutrition, because this is where a lot of myths live. Many people assume white meat is automatically healthier than dark meat. That idea has been repeated for decades, especially in diet culture. And there is some truth to it. White meat generally has fewer calories and less fat than dark meat. If you are only looking at raw numbers on a nutrition label, chicken breast does look like the lighter option. But health is more complicated than just fat content. Dark meat contains more iron, zinc, and certain vitamins because of that extra myoglobin and richer muscle structure. It also tends to be more satisfying and filling because of its higher fat content. So while white meat might win in the low-calorie category, dark meat often wins in the flavor and nutrient department. In reality, neither type is automatically better. They are just different tools in the same nutritional toolbox. Another interesting twist is that the white meat versus dark meat distinction is not universal across all animals. It mostly applies to birds. Mammals like cows and pigs do not have clear white and dark sections in the same way. Their muscles are used more evenly, so the meat is more consistent in color and structure. Fish have their own version of this concept, with some species having lighter, flaky flesh and others having darker, oilier meat. But the classic debate really belongs to poultry. Even among birds, the balance can change. Wild birds that fly long distances have much darker breast meat than farm-raised chickens. Ducks and geese, for example, use their flight muscles constantly, so their breast meat is dark instead of white. That is a perfect real-world example of how activity level directly shapes the kind of meat an animal develops. So the grocery store chicken is not just food. It is a biology lesson wrapped in plastic. Cultural preferences also play a huge role in how people feel about dark and white meat. In the United States, white meat became incredibly popular during the low-fat diet trends of the late 20th century. Chicken breasts were marketed as the healthy, clean, responsible choice. Meanwhile, dark meat quietly developed a reputation as greasy or unhealthy. In many other parts of the world, the opposite happened. Thighs and legs are often considered the best and most flavorful parts of the bird. They are prized for their richness and texture, while white meat is seen as a little boring. What one culture treats as premium, another might treat as second choice. Even within the same family, preferences can split right down the middle. There are people who would never choose anything but white meat, and others who think dark meat is the only part worth eating. These opinions can be surprisingly passionate for something as simple as chicken. But when you strip away the habits and traditions, the choice really comes down to what experience you want on your plate. If you like bold flavors, juicy bites, and forgiving cooking, dark meat is your friend. If you prefer a mild taste, lean protein, and a lighter texture, white meat makes more sense. Neither side is right or wrong. They are just different answers to the same question. Even professional chefs treat them as separate ingredients rather than interchangeable parts. Many recipes are designed specifically for one type or the other. Swapping chicken breast for chicken thighs can completely change a dish. That is not a flaw, it is the whole point. So the next time someone asks whether you want dark meat or white meat, you will know the answer is not just about preference. 'Tis about biology, chemistry, culture, and cooking science, all meeting on the same plate. And here is a final question to think about. If the difference between dark meat and white meat comes from how muscles are used, what other foods might be shaped by the same hidden logic? If you enjoy learning the everyday science behind ordinary things, consider subscribing to Things Explained. There is always something simple hiding a surprisingly interesting story.